Is it on? I can hear my voice. Good evening, you guys. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Okay, the lights are a little blinding for me, but I came up here without a phone, which is weird because it has notes on it, but I'm too lazy to walk all the way back up there to get it. So I'm just going to try to memorize. Welcome to the third annual Defend Life event hosted by First Choice and Faith Church. I'm just really thankful that you guys could be here tonight. And I see like the first couple rows, they all have notebooks. Their youth pastor was like, you're going to write some stuff down tonight. So it is really good to see you guys. I just wanted, before I bring up Kristen, I wanted to let you know that if you've never been here before, the restrooms are up this aisle, out the door, and to the right. So you can find the restrooms there. I know a lot of you brought your candy wrappers in here. Please do not leave them in here. Stick them in your pocket, and there are garbage bins out there for you to put them in. After Kristen speaks, we are going to have a little time of worship, and then we're going to have an intermission. We have some snacks and some water for you guys before we come back in to hear another representative, Mariah, from Students for Life. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the president of Students for Life, Kristen Hawkins.
Excited to be here. Maine's kind of like the West Virginia of New England, it feels like. So I kind of feel like I'm at home. Coming up here was just little towns and trees, and I was like, I feel like I'm back in West Virginia. So there we go. Although I guess you could say maybe New Hampshire. I don't know. There's more maybe Walmarts in New Hampshire, and that's very West Virginian. Is you got to have lots of Walmarts. So no, I'm very excited to be here. I love coming up in Maine in the fall, and you guys have some really spectacular foliage, so I'm very jealous. We have a lot of like pollution that like changes the leaves colors, but I don't think it's good pollution. Like they're not naturally orange. So yeah, we're gonna do Q&A later after Mariah speaks and kind of talks a little bit about how to get involved in Students for Life. My job is to make you want to get involved in the pro-life movement tonight. That is my goal. I don't actually know what I'm going to say. I'm just going to start out with that. I was rushing to get here. I jotted down some notes in the car, so we'll see what happens. And if you don't follow me, I'll try to slow down. But then you can ask all of your harder questions during the Q&A. So if you've ever been asked a question about abortion from friends or family members, or maybe you're a school teacher and you didn't quite know how to answer it, make sure you come and ask me later. Because I actually really enjoy hostile questions and hostile audiences. So it's actually very hard to speak to a nice audience and people who like me. I find it unnerving that everyone is like polite. So if I can make some people mad, that would be really great. So maybe I'll try to anger some people with my call and plea to action tonight. I want to start off by saying, so I was rushing to get here today, and it's been a long few months in the pro-life movement, very good few months in the pro-life movement as we've been working towards, and I think we're starting to see the dominoes fall with Roe versus Wade. And I'm going to talk about that a little later. But I was kind of in a funk this morning, and I couldn't really figure out why. I love traveling. I was coming to Maine. I was going to have a really great brunch. There were leaves. There's moose here. It's very exciting to somebody like me. I love fall. Like I want to move to fall full time. But I couldn't figure out like what was wrong, like what was going on in my head as I was trying to prepare for tonight and what we were going to be talking about. And it hit me a few hours ago, actually. I was in my hotel room down in Portland, and today is actually a pretty sad day in the history of our organization at Students for Life. 10 years ago, two of our team members were actually hit and killed by a drunk driver, leaving an event that we had hosted outside of Macon, Georgia, Students for Life training event down there at Mercer University. Courtney was a good friend. She was 22 weeks pregnant with her child, baby Sophie. And then John Scharfenberger was the second victim that day. We thankfully had two students in the backseat of the car who, despite having extensive injuries and lots of physical therapy over the years, have done well. But it's a hard day to think that 10 years ago, these two amazing human beings were taken from us in a senseless act. A man who had just gotten ready to retire. He was working for the U.S. Postal Service. He was driving to his family late at night and had one too many drinks, and decided stupidly to pass another vehicle on a two-lane road going up a hill where he couldn't see what was coming on the other side of him. And it was a head-on collision. Courtney died instantly. John died about 2 weeks later. And it kind of hit me as to why today I was having a hard time. It was this memory of these two incredible human beings that we lost. But I think it's relevant, and I wanted to share it with you, because I think it's very important when sometimes we talk about the pro-life issue and the issue of abortion. I think those who advocate for the violence of abortion, they sometimes think that we are pro-life because we've never experienced tragedy, because we've never had to make a hard decision in our life. That's why we are so, bigoted in our views, rigorous, refusing to bend, and our absolutist view that taking the preborn child's life is a moral wrong. But I would argue the opposite. I think it's because of the tragedy, because of the loss that we've personally experienced in our lives, that's why we value life. It's why we are pro-life, because we understand the preciousness of every single day that we have. And every moment that we're given on this earth, it's something to be treasured. And we feel that every human life should get that opportunity. It's actually a pretty simple message. Sometimes it's very hard on college campuses. People do not get, how could you say this? How could you be against abortion? And our message is actually very simple. What is inside of a mother is a unique, whole, living human being that's never existed before and will never exist again. And we believe that human being is equal to us and should be able to experience the life that they're given, even though it may be hard, even though there may be times of loss. That's part of being human, and just being human means you're special. It's really quite simple. We're not hiding anything in the pro-life movement. But I think when I reflect about Courtney and John and the tragedy we've experienced as a team at Students for Life and personally in our personal lives, losing our friends, I think it's a very poignant reminder for us, and really what I was asked to be here tonight to do, which is to challenge you to reflect upon what you want your legacy to be. What do you want your legacy to be? Because this is something, even as teenagers, you have to think about. Because your life could be very short. Some of us are, privileged to lead a life that spans decades. That you're 92. My grandpa was 92, and he was like, I'm ready to see Jesus. He was ready to see Jesus. It was an awkward funeral because we knew Pap, when he died earlier this year, he was excited to go see Jesus. He was done with us. Even at Christmas, he was ready to go. We were sad, but he was good. He lived 92 years. And then I think about John and Courtney, John was 21 years old. Courtney, who was 28. Baby Sophie, who was almost 22 weeks. I think about my own children. I have 2 children with cystic fibrosis. Thankfully now the prognosis for this genetic, life-threatening disease is very good. But we know things can change at a moment's notice. COVID was very scary for our family, fearing what, it could do to our children's lungs, and the damage it would inflict upon them, the fact that they've already have lung damage. And so I know innately as a pro-life activist that it's not the years our life spans, it's not the decades that our life spans, which makes our life, valuable. It's the fact that we were here. And we took this time, whatever time that we've given, whether it's a few days, a few weeks, a couple of years, and we made those years count. How do we make that time count? It's by saying yes to a mission, of asking God what his mission is for our lives. I know what my mission is. It's one, to spread the good news of my Savior. I'm not always the best at it when I'm driving. I'm working on it. It's to lead my children to become saints. Hopefully my husband. That's a longer term goal. And it's to abolish abortion. That's the mission I know he's placed in my heart. I know it's what he's equipped me to do. The skills, the people I've met, the places I've been. I know that's what he's called me to do. And the question is that you have to figure out. I figured this out at 15. The question is, what is he calling you to do? What's the difference he's asking you to make? What's the legacy that you're going to leave this earth doing? So that's what I want to talk about. It's our legacy. The legacy that we leave. We started Students for Life 15 years ago. And we knew there was a problem in the pro-life movement. Young people were, largely polling pro-choice on the issue of abortion. Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry was running unopposed on college campuses. We had a big problem on our hands in the pro-life movement. So we started something, a new entity, a new organization, and we decided, let's do it differently. Let's go on the college campuses, sort of like a political campaign, but instead of campaigning for a politician that people don't like, let's just campaign for human rights. Let's get people excited about supporting human rights. I simply said yes to a mission that God had placed in my heart after I started working at a pregnancy center as a teenager. I would love to be able to stand before you and say that I knew exactly what starting a national nonprofit would entail and how much pain and tears and stress that would come in. And I was like, yeah, I am down for that. God kept me blissfully ignorant of what was to come. But we said yes. And we decided to do something a little different. And I have to tell you, when we started Students for Life, I remember I went to Washington, D.C. Remember, I'm from West Virginia, like a bumpkin. I went to Washington, D.C., and all my heroes in the pro-life movement, people had read books and watched VHS tapes. Do you remember? Do you know what VHS tapes are? Okay, they know. I'd watch VHS tapes of all these pro-life leaders giving speeches and talking. And I got to go to this room, and they were all there together. And it was like my Hollywood. I am a dork. Yes, Father Frank Pavone. I was evangelical at the time. The Catholic pro-life priest. Meeting all of these amazing pregnancy center directors and leaders. Folks that started the first pregnancy centers in America. Meeting folks who had been on the ground and literally picketed abortion facilities because they took their 1960s picketing approach to nuclear power plants and nuclear weapons and decided to apply them in the pro-life movement. People had actually gone to jail for saying, no, we're not going to move in front of this abortion facility door. All these amazing people that had stood up at one point in their life and said, yep, I think this is what I'm called to do. And I got to meet all these folks, and I remember so excited. I walked into this room, and I told them, I have this idea that we're going to go to college campuses right where the abortion industry is targeting, right where Planned Parenthood has embedded themselves, and we are going to start pro-life student groups. And I had started a group in my high school, and I started one in my college. So I sort of knew what I was getting myself into. And I remember the leaders there, they all loved my enthusiasm, they said. It was so cute. But everyone gave me a job offer. Everyone said, if you need a job in a couple of months, come see me. We'd be happy to help you out. Like, no one thought what we were doing was actually possible. They all thought it was cute. I would just have turned 21. I just had gotten married. My cheeks were a little fuller. I didn't have any, droopy things under my eyes. They all thought, this is a cute girl that wants to do something completely out of her league. But they don't know me, and they certainly don't know the pro-life generation, because we are gritty. We are stubborn. Gritty is a nicer way of saying stubborn. We went to college campuses anyway. We had our little fold-up wagons and our fold-up tables, and we started going campus to campus, having conversations with young people about abortion. Today, 15 years later, I'm honored to say that we're able to serve over 1,275 groups in all 50 states. Yes, Maine has one, and tonight there better be two by the time I leave here. All 50 states, and we've been able to train over 132,000 young people in 15 years. We are on the front lines every day having conversations and conversions. The tour that Mariah's going to be speaking after me this evening. She's the New England Regional Coordinator for Students for Life. You have to give her love, because this is the worst region for Students for Life. Everyone's so mean on the campus. Not in Maine, Massachusetts. But we have this tour that we're taking to campuses right now. We're free from COVID, so we can go to campuses. And Mariah's got the tour this week, so you'll see a part of it out there. It's called See Me Now. And what's so great is I'm so competitive with even myself. I'm competitive with everything. Everything in life is a competition. And once you get that, you'll always win, by the way. But I ask our team, when you're on campuses, count the number of people you've had conversations with. Who can you stop and have real life conversations with? How many conversions can we get? How many recruitments, activations into the pro-life movement? And it's amazing. Despite everything that you hear from the mainstream media, the narrative that they weave, we're actually winning. Right now on college campuses across the country, we're touring 160 campuses. We'll hit 160 campuses by the end of the month. 52% of the young people, the college students that we stop, engage in conversation with, raise their hand to join the pro-life movement. And 10% of them who aren't pro-life, when we start talking to them, instantly admit that they were wrong and changed their minds. That's huge, because we as humans don't ever like to admit we're wrong. Even when I am wrong, do I tell my husband he was right? No. He might be right, but that's something I admit way later, not in the fight. But we're winning. We're winning. And I tell you this not because I'm a genius. I am not. Not because I'm some well-trained political operative who came from a family with all of these connections. No, my family's all Democrats. I was the only person who became a Republican. And then my papa was really mad at me. I didn't come from, political organizing. I just wanted to do something. Because I started volunteering at a pregnancy center when I was 15. I fell into it once again, didn't have a plan. A woman just at my church simply invited me to come and shadow her for a day. I think she was hoping for some free labor. And I agreed, and I learned about what abortion was. I saw the women who are walking into the pregnancy center, wounded, scared, afraid. And I just remember thinking, why don't we talk about this? Why aren't we talking about this at school? Why aren't we talking about at church? And so I just knew I had to do something. And today, that saying yes to saying, okay, God, maybe this is what I'm meant to do. Maybe this is the call you're placing on my life for the legacy you want me to leave on this earth. It's produced hundreds of thousands of minds changed in our country. Little babies. Now not so little babies. We have 10-year-olds, almost teenagers, children who've been saved because somebody else at an event like this heard me speak and also raised their hand and said, yep, I can do that too. If she can do it, surely I can do it. And they started a Students for Life group on their campus. They started talking about abortion. They started asking themselves, how do we transform our campus? How do we transform our school so no woman ever again feels like she has to choose between the life of her child and her education? To really make substantial transformation occur. It's a domino effect that keeps going within the pro-life generation. And I'm so honored that God chose me and said, yeah, even you can do it. You can do it. For this legacy that we're leaving. That all of us, I believe, in the pro-life generation are leaving. And the good news is, it's really working. I don't know what your news stations up here talk about when you cover the Women's March. Which we'll get to that in a little bit. But we actually are winning. In fact, that is why I would argue that the other side is working so hard right now, is so unhinged, because they know that we're winning. Just last week, a report came out that said over 106 pro-life laws were passed in state houses across the country this spring. That is the most pro-life laws, abortion restrictive laws, since 1973. Abortion numbers, surgical abortion numbers, continue to decline in our country. The number of freestanding abortion facilities, they're dropping. They can't afford to keep them running, despite all the money President Biden keeps sending them. So we have fewer abortions, fewer abortion facilities. The abortion industry can't recruit enough abortionists, which is why they're condensing their abortion facilities, trying to open up mega abortion facilities so they can fly abortionists to remote locations, but mostly keep them in these mega facilities. We have states now taking action and saying, yeah, we can do something. New Hampshire defunded Planned Parenthood this year. How did that happen? Governor Sununu isn't really a known pro-life guy. But you got to get those Republicans on the checkbook. That always works. That's right. That's right. So we see change happening before our eyes. I think the most indicative statistic, though, is if you go to the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C., and suddenly you go from your small town thinking you're the only pro-lifer, or the only few pro-lifers willing to stand and speak out, and then you're surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people. Majority, 3/4 of the crowd, I would say, would be under 25. Friends, when young people are on your side, no matter what the social movement is, you know victory it's on its way. That's just the way it goes. History has already proven this to us time and time again. So we are winning. The momentum is building. The Supreme Court allowed the Texas heartbeat law to stand. Actually, it was a Students for Life alum, State Representative Briscoe Cain, who wrote that bill in Texas, who's now being sued. He got sued 13 times last week. He wrote the bill. It was passed, signed into law, and acted. The Supreme Court allowed the bill to stand. It was just 2 days ago when the Biden administration got one federal judge to sue every single judge in the state of Texas to prevent them from taking on the case. It's getting insane. We're winning. On December 1st, Wednesday, December 1st, the Supreme Court will hear oral arguments in Dobbs v. Jackson. This is the Supreme Court case, which, by the way, the Supreme Court didn't have to take up this case. They didn't actually have to take up this question. And the question that the Mississippi AG, the Attorney General, is posing is, why the heck do we have Roe versus Wade? This is a case of a Mississippi law that was passed, I think, in 2018 or 2019, that bans abortions when children have been proven to feel pain at 15 weeks. Hearing day is Wednesday, December 1st. Decision day will be the last week of June. They won't ever tell us the day the decision comes down. They like to keep me guessing and making me have to be out there for an entire week with a group of students. It's the only suntan I get all summer, so it has its benefits. But this June, that's when the decision will come down. We could see a reversal of Roe with this decision. We could see them simply uphold the Mississippi law, which would signal to state lawmakers across the country that they too can ban abortions in the second and third trimester. Or the court can say, all states can make decisions on abortions, which would reverse Roe. This is a significant moment. We know it in the pro-life movement. I haven't slept in like 2 months. It's getting bad, people. Lots of Starbucks refresher drinks. But they also know it too. They know it. They fear the day that we know is very near. We saw it this weekend at the Women's March in Washington, D.C., and hundreds of cities across the country. Students for Life, we countered the Women's March in 24 states. And a lot of people are like, why would you do that, Kristen? Why would you go out to the Women's March? Obviously, it's going to be a hostile crowd. Heck yeah, it's a hostile crowd. That's why we go out there, because that's when we can have conversions. We actually changed minds. We had protesters put down their protest signs and join us. We had women who were pregnant, scared, asking for help, that we were immediately, the feminists never know where the pregnancy centers are, and our students, being the dorks we are, we're like, oh, it's right here down the street, let me lead you. We already had it. We challenge people. We challenge the narrative. So when the media went out on ABC and Fox and NBC and PBS and HBO, and they had all their cameras out there, and they wanted to paint this story that every woman in America is angry and PO'd, they couldn't do it because in all these cities we had young, joyful, cute, I would say, girls holding signs. I am the pro-life generation. The future is anti-abortion. And it messes with their narrative. It's exactly what we need broadcast across the country. But it was dangerous. We had gotten a tip from the Supreme Court police. We're friendly with them. We're out there a lot for Supreme Court cases. We know their first names. They know us. We got a call Friday night from the Supreme Court saying there's an active threat against you. So we had to scramble. We had to hire our security officers. We retrained all of our staff, but what we didn't anticipate was the level of violence that actually happened in the states. In Bellingham, Washington, so about 2.5 hours north of Seattle, the state of Washington just passed a law saying police officers aren't allowed to arrest protesters even when they're violent. So when we called the police and said they're punching us, they wouldn't come. In Denver, despite telling our staff to kind of be separate from them, and we were broadcasting one of our pregnant team members, the sound of her baby's heartbeat over the bullhorn. They surrounded her and began shouting her down, telling her that she was going to be a horrible mom, that they wish her baby died. They were unhinged. It was some of the most dangerous counter-protests we've actually ever seen at Students for Life in 15 years. And we like to do this. We like to have conversations and conversions on campuses and in communities. But they're unhinged. Why, you ask? It's not because they're all just crazy leftist Democrats. Some of them are. I love Democrats. We need pro-life Democrats, and we need pro-life Democrats to take over your party. So that's another speech. They're there, and they're angry because they're hurting. This isn't rule number 1 at Students for Life. When you're on campus and you're in a community and someone starts shouting down at you, cursing at you, punching at you, trying to steal your signs, when somebody's acting completely erratic and crazy, there's something deeper going on with them. Those streets were filled with women who've had abortions. And they were upset and they're hurting because they fear that someday, very soon, the Supreme Court is going to change its mind on abortion. And that icky feeling that was in their gut before they had that abortion, now it's going to be written in law that it's wrong. We have a lot of work to do in the pro-life movement. We have victory on its way. Roe versus Wade, I believe, either with this case with Dobbs or with one of the 20 other cases making their way up to the Supreme Court, I do believe we'll see a reversal of Roe. Is that the end of our work in the pro-life movement? Nope. The Hawkins family sold our house this summer. We're actually living in our fifth wheel camper, ready to travel the country because I know this is what's going to happen. We're going to have to travel from state to state because when Roe is reversed, what will happen? Every single state will make their own abortion laws. We will go from one big battle to 50 simultaneous battles. This is why we've been preparing the pro-life generation, raising up leaders in every single state, testing leaders, because we know that day comes, you all will have to go to the Capitol. I can't make it here. I'll be in another state. And we're going to go state by state to make abortion illegal. But is that the end of our battle? When we see 25, 30 states make it illegal and other states like Massachusetts and California and Rhode Island ensure abortion's legal in all 9 months and taxpayer funded? No. The ultimate goal is a constitutional amendment, which will take 37 states to ratify. We'll have to work towards that, but making abortion illegal, will it stop abortions? No. We also have to make it unthinkable. And that, my friends, is the hardest part. The legal battle, it's going to be kind of easy. We know at least what we need to do. We know the steps we have to take. Making abortion unthinkable is going to be much, much harder. This is why I'm hoping when tonight you're thinking about what your legacy in the pro-life movement is, what the mission God's placed in your heart, I really hope that this is something you consider. How do I make abortion unthinkable? What can I do here in Waterville, Maine to make abortion unthinkable? Who can I serve and love and show the actual mission of the pro-life movement to? We know in the pro-life movement, and just from the studies and the research that we have done at Students for Life, and I believe one of our biggest problems is no one actually knows about our pregnancy centers. If I had $1 billion to abolish abortion, I would spend like $900 million of it on PR and advertising. Planned Parenthood is so savvy. They're on their phones. They're in schools. Everywhere a potential pregnant person may be, they are there. And we're always here. And we're like, why do you hate us? We're the ones who provide all this support. Look at all we do. Does Planned Parenthood provide job counseling, mentorship, maternity clothes, free STD tests and treatment, OB referrals, counseling? No. The answer is no. They don't do any of that. I've gone into lots of Planned Parenthoods. Nada. None. Zip. Yet when we're on the streets and we're doing a counter event, or if I'm at a Capitol, or if I'm at a campus with a hostile audience, really fun, the first thing I always hear is how much pro-life people hate women and how much we don't care about the baby. And if only you pro-life people cared as much about a born child as you do a fetus in the womb, we wouldn't be in this problem. And I just want to take my head and bang it against the podium over and over again, because I'm like, have you ever met us? Have you ever seen what we do? Because this is what we do. Hi, nice to meet you. This is who we are in the pro-life movement. Part of making abortion unthinkable is we have to show her we're already there. That it doesn't have to be this way, that there is another option, that there is another way. And I am firmly convinced, friends, that if she actually knew that, if she knew the resources and support that are available to her, you would dramatically reduce the number of women that said, yeah, I'm going to go have an abortion. You won't reduce everyone. You won't stop every abortion. But I've never met a woman who's gone into an abortion facility on a Saturday morning who's excited to exercise her constitutional right to have an abortion. Have you all ever gone from an abortion facility to pray or to stand? It's a place of desperation. She's not there because she's like empowered. She's there because she's run out of resources. She feels like she's run out of options. And we need to show her we already have the plan for you. There's this whole thing called first choice. And guess what? They will do whatever is needed to help you and your child succeed and thrive. Like, that's what they exist to do. That's what they love to do. That's what their mission is. That's their legacy. So we have to think about when we think about our legacy, don't just think about, the legality of Roe, making abortion illegal. Think about unthinkable and what we've got to do. The abortion industry is very savvy. Right now, they know that even if they get a good decision with Dobbs v. Jackson, the Supreme Court this June, they know that one of the 20 cases making their way up to the Supreme Court right now will eventually do the trick. And so they know third trimester and second trimester abortions are a thing in the past. No one likes them. We have this thing called science and ultrasounds, and they prove what's inside of a mother is a unique, whole living human being. It's not like some foreign alien. I literally have biology majors try to argue science with me and then tell me that I can't say anything because I'm not a biology major. I'm not as smart as they are. Mariah's taking our tour to MIT next week. That's going to be hilarious. But we already know this is happening, and they know it too. They know they can't recruit abortionists. They know brick and mortar abortion facilities are hard to maintain because those nasty pro-lifers come out and surround them in prayer. Prayer's powerful, apparently, and keep shutting them down. So what are they doing? They're moving to chemical abortion drugs. Their goal is that she never actually has to see a doctor. She'll call, Zoom, Skype with an abortion facility in a blue state. That abortion facility will ship her the chemical abortion drugs along with a cheap pregnancy test that she can get at the dollar store. After she is told to sit on the toilet and flush, not to look, pass her child into the sewer system, the public water system, which, by the way, you want to talk about an environmental problem. There's one. After she does that, she'll be told to pee on a stick and make sure she's not pregnant, and then hope that all of the placenta, all of the child has been dislodged from a uterus and doesn't cause sepsis. Oh, and by the way, if she's Rh negative, she doesn't even need to get a blood test anymore. So if she's Rh negative, they're not even going to give her a Rogan shot, which that means when you're pregnant, I didn't know this, you can be Rh negative, your blood type, and your spouse or your partner's blood type can be different than yours as a pregnant woman. And if you're Rh negative, you don't get this shot when you're pregnant or right after you give birth, you'll never be able to carry to term another child again. You can get pregnant, but you're not going to be able to deliver a child. They're not even testing for that. Not even testing for that. This is where the abortion industry is going. And when pro-life groups like Heartbeat International try to put up Google ads to tell women that there's the abortion pill reversal process, there's a way if you've taken the first chemical abortion pill, there's about 40 to 60% chance that they can save your child's life depending on when you call. Now Google has banned all of those ads. This is why you all are so needed. Because they're moving fast and they're using COVID as the excuse. Oh, COVID, She can't go in for a blood test. She can't go in to actually confirm she's pregnant, but we can ship her out abortion pills. Cha-ching! They charge the same amount of money. They don't have to pay for the disposal of the child's body. They don't even have to perform the operation. So they're still making bank. Then they've got their friends in big tech, like Google, who are just actively suppressing free speech, labeling people like me as bigots and haters, remember? My favorite is like when I'm on a campus and there's like all these protests just simply because I'm there, and it's like I'm a transphobe and I'm it's funny. They're fetus phobes. You ever think about that? They're literally terrified of a fetus, a human baby. So they're working as fast as possible to get chemical abortions to the market, to transform all laws, to transform their entire industry, to work with big tech to stop and censor pro-life voices and alternatives, non-violent alternatives. They're working with their allies, the people that they've bought and paid off in campaigns to pass crazy pro-abortion laws. Literally, Joe Biden's Department of Justice wrote a letter to the state of Texas and told the state of Texas officials, do not enforce the Texas heartbeat law. Literally, the highest judicial firm, law enforcement firm in the country wrote a letter to the state of Texas employees, people who have been sworn to uphold the laws of the state of Texas, telling them don't uphold the laws of the state of Texas because we told you so. They don't care because they're desperate. And they're throwing whatever they can up to keep abortion legal, to keep women believing that somehow the right to end the life of your child is tied to your worth and your value. So we have to do something about it. We have to figure out quickly what our legacy is going to be. My challenge to you tonight is just think of being a David. I love David and Goliath. I was recently debating this doctor on TV who was trying to quote the Old Testament to me. It was really funny, but he got it wrong and misquoted the Bible, of course. But it was interesting because I remembered, I was like, oh, the Old Testament has some pretty good stories in it, though. David and Goliath. I love that story. Malcolm Gladwell, New York Times bestselling author, he wrote The Tipping Point. He wrote a book a couple years ago called David and Goliath. And I will admit, I'm a mom of four, so I don't actually read that many books. I read like New Yorker articles. They're like 16 pages long. There are summaries of the books, and it's about as good. So I'm an expert in the book because I read the whole New Yorker article, and I have it saved. But it was interesting with this book. Malcolm Gladwell, he went to biblical scholars, figured out where was the actual battle of David and Goliath? Where did it happen? What weapon did he actually use? How did a boy, a shepherd, beat this Philistine, right? This giant among men who was unbeatable. Like, how did that actually happen? And it was interesting because he said that throughout history, there's been these David and Goliath fights that pop up. We know, we were like in one, hello. But what people don't understand is in about 60% of the time, the Davids actually win the battle. We tend to think it's like a million in one shot. Like, oh, we're the David. Planned Parenthood, the $2 billion corporation. They're the Goliath. And we got a million in one shot. But the good news is we actually can win. And he proved, and he actually studied these different historical battles, not only the actual David and Goliath battle, but other battles, other fights that happened throughout human history to see what were the things that everybody who won, who was David's, did. And what I loved about it is it's something that all of us can do. Like, all of us can be Davids. If we say, yes, this is our legacy. Yes, God has placed this on my heart to do something to end the tragedy of abortion, to speak out. You don't have to have a lot to be a David, because congratulations, you're probably a David. Maybe there's a Goliath here. I don't know. I didn't see any super tall people, but maybe there's some billionaires. You would be a Goliath if you're a billionaire here. but we're mostly all Davids. The first thing Davids do is they believe. They actually, in their heart, believe that what they're doing can be successful. I like to use the word envision. I think a lot of times in the pro-life movement, I go to pregnancy center galas and banquets and gatherings across the country, and it kind of gets to the point where it's like everyone just like shows up because that's what you do every April, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna have chicken, maybe this year they'll have salmon, but it's like a thing to do. But then there's not really a lot of excitement in the community about ending abortion. And I find that so ironic because we're Christians. Most of us. Not everybody at Students for Life is Christian. We have like 2 atheists, by the way. We welcome atheists. We convert them. But we want them to come and join our movement. But we're Christians. So like, why don't we think it's possible? We believe in a God of a universe who literally, we believe, spoke the universe into existence. Who went from nothing to something very big. And then we're like, yeah, abortion's never going to be ended. It's always going to be here. What a loser mentality. Think about sports psychology. That's the loser mentality, right? Like if you're going to go, I don't know what your sport of choice is here, maybe hockey because you're so close to Canada. But if you're going to go onto the ice, you better believe that you're going to win. Because if you don't, if your coach tells you before you get onto the ice, hey, you're going to lose, and you think you're going to lose, it's not going to go real great for your team. The first step, everything that David can do, a David can believe. A David must believe in his or her heart that ending abortion is possible, that we can make abortion illegal and unthinkable a thing of the past. The second thing you can do to be a David, to leave that legacy for life, I love this one. Be relentless. Never give up. Never give up. No matter what's thrown at you, no matter how many times you fail. As Students for Life, we tell our employees, we expect you to fail. Because in your failures, that is when you will figure out how to do it. Right? The next time. You will have to fail. If you're afraid to fail, you'll never do anything in your life. I fail constantly. I'm like the biggest failure on my staff. But sometimes things go right. Be relentless in your quest. Work harder than anybody else. He calls it, Gladwell in his book has called it substituting effort for ability. I love it because I don't have a lot of ability in many things. But I can give you a lot of effort. I know I can control that. I know I can work harder than everybody else. Be relentless in your quest. The other thing he found out that Davids do, and you can read this if you go back to Old Testament and read the Old Testament, rush forward. David rushed into the battle. He went forward into the battle. He didn't wait for Goliath to come to him. David's rush into the battle. We press forward. We're aggressive. We're on the offensive. We're not just on the defensive. We're on the offensive. That's what is so great about what we're doing at Students for Life is we are on the offensive. We don't wait for people to come to us and be like, I want to start a Students for Life group. I'm coming to you and I'm saying one of you is going to start me a Students for Life group in Waterville, Maine. I'm coming to you. Rush forward into the battle. And the fourth thing I took away from the thing, once again, I only read the New Yorker. There might be more, but I read 16 pages. I'm good. The fourth thing he was saying about Davids and these historical Davids that were victorious in their battle was they were out-of-the-box thinkers. They were innovative. They try new things. That's part of being that relentless, not being afraid to fail. When you try new things, you're going to fail all the time. But you're going to try new things. We've taken toilet bowls to college campuses up and down California. Changed a lot of minds when we said, is this a place to have your abortion? And every pro-choice student on campus said, nope. And I said, well, your state assembly said it is. what you'll see out on the table that Mariah has, our See Me Now tour. I don't think she has them, but we took our videos and some of the videos some of our friends did, other organizations, and we made them virtual reality. We have like the first pro-life virtual reality display. I'm so excited. It's innovative. It's getting people to take earbuds out of their ear and stop to talk to us. It works because you get free virtual reality goggles if you stop and talk to us. And then we can change your mind about abortion. It's a win-win. But you have to be willing to think outside the box and say, I know this is the way we've always done it here, but let's try something new. And let's not be afraid to fail. So that's it. Be a David. Be a David. Find out what the legacy God is calling you to leave on this earth. Figure it out. Figure it out soon. And do it. Because you don't know the days that you have left. You don't know the time that you'll have. But you do know the truth about abortion. You do know the violence of abortion. And you do know He's called you to do something about it. So figure out what you can do. What's the unique niche, the unique role, the unique skill that you possess that you can deploy in the pro-life movement right now to save lives, to help women, to serve families, and get on with it and be a David. If I can do it, once again, nobody from West Virginia, if I can do it, anyone can do it. All right, I'll save your hard questions for later.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Can we just give her one more round of applause? All right, I brought my phone this time. I have my notes. Woo! All right, so some of our vendors are in here that are out that have a table, but I wanted to kind of introduce them. So if you are in here and I say your name, just raise your hand and I'll point them out, and then you can turn around and see them. All right. So is Anne Fauché here? She's out there already? Okay. Anne Fauché is a volunteer at First Choice Pregnancy Center, and she is manning our booth out there. And like Kristen said, we don't want to be a secret anymore. You guys know who we are, and we need to get out there in our communities, letting people know what we do. So we have some amazing resources. Like, we're not just fetus. We go all the way to teenagers. So, we do it all. All right. Is Mike in here? Mike McClellan? All right. He's raising his hand in the back. Do you see him? Mike. Mike is here representing the Christian Civic League. And if you have never heard of them, they bring biblical perspective to public policy that impacts the family in the state of Maine. So when we're talking about laws and things like that, Mike is going to be a good resource for you to go visit his booth. And he's got lots of great stuff out there. Do I have Jody, Kim, and Catherine? Yay! One of them is like, I'm here, but not. I think she's new, a new volunteer. But they are here from First Step Pregnancy Center in Bangor, Maine. And we just love them. They're kind of like, they're amazing ladies. And Bangor is not that far away from here. And I know that even if you're doing sports, you know people who live in that community. So they are a great resource for people who live in that community or a little bit too far away from Waterville. So they have amazing resources. One of the things that they do at their pregnancy center that we're hoping to add to ours in the future is STD and STI testing. So that is amazing. It's all free. And they have a day of the week every month that they host that testing at their pregnancy center. So it is pretty amazing. We are going to enjoy a few worship songs as we kind of wind down just a little bit before intermission. I just want to thank Libby Conley for doing worship for us. Oh, and Justin. Sorry, Justin. I didn't see him earlier, so I want to thank them. After they're done with worship, we're going to have a 20-minute intermission where you can go meet all of the people that I just spoke about. They have some really amazing things at their booths, and there's also water and snacks in the hub, which is just out and to the right. So make sure you grab some food. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Hello. If you want, or actually, no, sorry, you don't get a choice here. Would you please stand? And let's just take a minute. We're going to take a minute to just stretch our voices out and, move around. We've been sitting, listening to some great words from Kristen, but I think we could use a movement break. How about you guys? It's a very teachery sentence I just said right there. So, all right. chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him. Lord, I come and I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. And without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. And Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. And Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach my song to rise to you when temptation comes my way. When I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. And when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. And Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So this next one, I was actually thinking it while Kristen was talking. It was pretty cool sometimes how God, you have a set list, and then you have a speaker, and you don't talk to the speaker at all before you start playing. And then you're like, oh, hey, the set list really kind of matches up. Where Kristen was saying it's possible for us to, further the pro-life movement, but I was also really kind of struck by how we can't do it if we don't have God behind us. And this song, it's a newer, contemporary, don't be scared by this word, hymn. But it's called Yet Not I, But Through Christ in Me, which is that Philippians, I really hope I got that reference there right, but the Philippians verse that Paul writes about that, I can do all things through Christ in me. So I hope you enjoy it and sing along.
What gift of grace is Jesus my Redeemer? There is no more for heaven now to give. He is my joy, my righteousness and freedom, my steadfast love, my deep and boundless peace. To this I hope, my hope is only Jesus, and for my life is wholly bound to His. And oh, how strange and divine, I can sing, all is mine, yet not I, but through Christ in me. The night is dark, but I am not forsaken, for by my side the Savior, He will stay. I labor on in weakness and rejoicing, for in my need His power is displayed. To this I hope, my shepherd will defend me. Through the deepest valley He will lead. And oh, the night has been won, and I shall overcome, yet not I, but through Christ in me. No fate I dread, I know I am forgiven. The future sure, the price it has been paid. For Jesus bled and suffered for my pardon, and He was raised to overthrow the grave. And to this I hold, my sin has been defeated. Jesus now and ever is my plea. And oh, the chains are released, I can sing, I am free, and not I, but through Christ in me. With every breath, I long to follow Jesus, for He has said that He will bring me home. And day by day, I know He will renew me until I stand with joy before the throne. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. All the glory evermore to Him. And when the race is complete, still my lips shall repeat, and not I, but through Christ in me. To this I hold. To this I hold, my hope is only
Heavenly Father, thank you that we have had this time of fellowship and worship. And I pray that you would be with us through the rest of the evening. And in your name I pray. Amen. All right.
Let's give Libby and Justin another round of applause. Thank you, guys. Oh, you don't have to sit down because it's intermission time. But I forgot something that I didn't write in my notes. One of our other vendors, which you're going to hear after intermission, is Mariah, and she is, like Kristen said, the regional coordinator for the Northeast region. And she is going to be amazing. She's going to talk after this, but she has an amazing booth out there, so please go see her. She got some free stuff. And while you're out at intermission, be thinking of some questions that you want to ask later, because First Choice has got some free swag we're going to give out for those who ask some questions. So, all right, 20 minutes, and I'll let you guys know when to come back in.
pregnant.
to pay your debt, I'll be the ransom. Then to bring you life, I'll give it all. I'll give it all. Just when you think the story's over, you know my love is strong as ever. 'Cause I'm gonna bleed for this love. Yes, every sanctuary with a condo. Where would you go? Where would you go? We are a cathedral made of people in a kingdom that the eye can't see. We're a house, we are the bride, where God's Spirit lives inside, and nothing ever can stand against her. If they burned every Bible, what would you know? If they tore your marked up pages, how would you grow? And declared your devotion to be criminal, what would you know? What would you know? We are a cathedral made of people in a kingdom that the eye can't see. We're a house, we are the bride, where God's Spirit lives inside, and nothing ever can stand against us. What will you do when they hate you for the things that you know are true? They can tear down this
Hello. Did you guys get enough to drink and eat? I literally could see your hands in the candy, so I think you guys are all sugared up and fueled up to hear our next speaker. So I'd like to introduce to you the Northeast Regional Coordinator for Students for Life, Mariah.
Hello, Waterville. Who's excited to be out here tonight? I'm sorry, did someone just sneeze? Who's excited to be out here tonight? Thank you. My name is Mariah McCarran. I am your New England Regional Coordinator, just started this summer. Stoked to be here. So anyway, I do have a presentation for you guys all about student activism to tell you how you can be a student just like so many of us here at SFLA, like myself, that started as a student that has been lit on fire for this movement, even to the point of making a career out of this. But we'll start with what you can do on campus. How are we gonna make an impact? So, if we could have our presentation up here. So, welcome to student activism. Being a student and a pro-life activist, could we swing into the next slide, please? Our goals in this presentation are to learn how to become involved in this movement while being a student. While this tide is turning, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a pivotal moment for the future of the pro-life movement, for the future of life. The Texas Heartbeat Act in the last month has saved something like 4,000 lives. And we are headed into December 1st, when Dobbs versus Jackson is going to be heard before the Supreme Court that's going to decide the constitutionality of bans on abortion at the 15-week mark during pregnancy. Currently, in our nation, Roe versus Wade and Doe versus Bolton have abortion legalized through all 9 months. Now, restrictions vary by state, but I can go on and on about how much I love my blue state pro-lifers because the fight is here, you guys. As a native New Yorker, believe me, I've seen it. And I can't tell you enough how I love my Northeast blue state pro-lifers, because you guys are the ones that'll get knocked down 9 times and get back up 10, which is why we're here talking, why we're here informing on how to be that pro-life activist, how to be that flame that lights candle after candle after candle until we are an entire human vigil on fire for this movement. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, before I continue, I would like to show you a video of our why, of why we're here, what it is that we do, and the effects of what we do. So if we could go into that for a moment.
During that time, I was real depressed, and it was at that point when I walked by the Students for Life table on campus.
I met Jessica on the first day of school. One of my club members had a wonderful tent that we set up over the table.
I was walking to the table with a friend of mine.
I remember very vividly passing them information about our club. It was a little slip of paper. It said, "Join Students for Life at Sac State," and it had our email address.
I just felt the need to write an email to Megan. I just told her, I had an abortion a couple of months ago. I felt like I made a mistake, and I want to help other women not make that same mistake.
I could tell from her email that she was hurting inside, and we actually initially contacted Students for Life to find out what to do.
She introduced me to Rachel's Vineyard. I started coming to the Students for Life meeting.
I also remember talking with her after each club meeting, just a long discussion to be, to help her grieve through that process. We studied together, hung out together. We became mutual friends with a lot of each other's friends.
I remember after a while, I texted Megan.
She basically wanted to cut off contact with me, which was very strange. And I knew something was wrong.
I found out I was pregnant, and I felt bad because the first thing that popped into my head was to have an abortion. Here it is, I'm trying to help other women not make the same mistake, and I'm found in the same predicament as I was before.
I was trying to get where she was, trying to get the address. I was hoping she wasn't at the abortion clinic. I just thought the worst thing,
And so, she's calling, but I'm not answering because I didn't want to deal with it at that time.
Finally, she would tell me that she would meet with me after her work day. And the next day after work, she came over and we gave each other a long hug and we talked all day. And that was the beginning of all-day talks for a while. We had many conversations where Jessica was wrestling with the decision to keep the baby.
I didn't know whether I was going to have an abortion or not, and it was a battle for several months.
She was in a very difficult situation. Even though she knew abortion was wrong and she didn't want to have another abortion, she felt like that was her only choice.
It was really challenging because, I was in school. It was like my last year actually in college. I was working.
We didn't always talk about the baby. We ate popcorn, watched movies. We laugh a lot, and I just always made sure I was there for her.
I just remember Megan just always being there. She never went a day without contacting me. You know, how are you feeling? You know, it's gonna be okay. Just encouraging words.
The most important thing to do and be for that person is a friend. I felt like I needed to be so close to her because there's so many voices that were telling her otherwise. The community she was around was not pro-life, and that was very, very hard to combat for me, being the only real pro-lifer standing by her.
If it wasn't for Megan, you know, being there daily for me, I know I would have chosen abortion. She was his voice. You know, she fought for his life. I just knew I wanted Megan to be Stefan's godmother.
I don't know how to describe it. It was very emotional though. I was there when Stefan was born, and I started crying. I started crying, and I had to leave the room. It wasn't real until that moment, like, wow, we did it. Like, he's here, you know, he's alive.
All I could do was just look in his eyes and, you know, I was hugging him and kissing him, and, you know, really glad that I decided to choose life, and thank God for, you know, letting me keep him. Stefan, you know, means the world to me. Like, even, you know, now, I never stop, you know, looking at him, and, you know, it's been 2 years now, and, you know, I just really, I know I get happy every day, and I just thank God, and he's my joy, you know, my peace. Even though the situation wasn't how I planned, you know, just choosing life, just, you know, it's indescribable.
This is the battle that's going on every day on our campuses. Abortion betrays women. Women deserve so much better. They need to know where to go. They need to know they have someone to lean on. They need that voice that's boldly standing up for life, that's opening these conversations to speak up for women, to say that we can have our babies and our dreams. If we could go to the next slide, please. There are so many more. These stories exist on almost every campus of young women who find themselves in unintended pregnancies and don't know where to go. Or they're not aware of the reality of life in the womb and the lies of the abortion industry, which is why we're here. If you could pull to the next slide. So, what is a student activist? Well, next slide, please. Let's start with myself. I have always been pro-life to a degree. For a lot of my life, I was what I considered quietly pro-life. I knew that abortion made me uncomfortable, but I also knew that it was an incredibly touchy subject, or at least I felt that way, and I didn't really speak to it. Actually, my activism story is almost entirely attributed to the same organization that raised me that I work for now, Students for Life of America. It was my own Students for Life group at the State University of New York at Geneseo. I was a freshman in college, and they sent out a campus-wide invite saying, hey, would anyone like to go to the annual march in Washington for like $40? And me, being a 19-year-old college student who was eager to get out of the part of New York State that is all cornfields and dairy farms. It's like, heck yes, I want to go to Washington, D.C. for like $40. So we took the bus, an 8-hour red eye down, and that is when the floodgates of this movement opened up for me. Literally every talking point you can imagine is on a sign. There are people of every single background backing this movement. And we're young. I don't think the average age, if we combine the age of everyone at the March for Life, could legally drink in this country. Just saying. And a logic that is so unshakable made this stick in my mind. Made this think, well, if this many are standing for it, this gives me courage. This gives me that justification that this thing making me so uncomfortable, this is not an anomaly. This is a very real and very damaging experience that so many are going through, that have been going through, especially since 1973 with Roe. Since that point, I became president of that very same Students for Life group, a Hildegard Art Fellow, a founding Hildy, one of 5 in the country for pro-life activism in the arts. And then about 6 or 7 months after my college graduation, I'm here. Looks like you're stuck with me, Kristen. And how I did both? You simply do. And I know that's easier said than done. But so much of this was driven by a fire of that knowing that every single day, 976 lives are lost at Planned Parenthood alone. That every single day, women are betrayed and the lives of their children lost. That fathers lose their children, grandparents lose their grandchildren. When there is hope out there, when there is so much better, that my conscience wouldn't let me stay silent. So I took my free time and I channeled that into our conversations, into our group meetings, into being productive in this way. So if we could go to the next slide, please. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is cooperating with it. We cannot remain silent in this issue. Our silence opens the door to the stampede of pro-abortion legislation and pro-abortion activity that is rampaging through many states, that is rampaging through my home in New York, where abortion is legal through all 9 months for any reason. It stands across movements for all human beings. Next slide, please. Planned Parenthood is targeting our very demographic. They are targeting high school and college students. Their business model aims to get students through the door for multiple abortions by the time they even graduate college. Several Planned Parenthoods are located within 5 to 7 miles of a university campus. These are happening to our peers and their children. These are people that we interact with every single day, and they receive our taxpayer money to do this. This is why we stand up. Next slide, please. We are so needed. Like I said before, the future is anti-abortion, unequivocally. I mean, just take that litmus test of the March for Life, where the average age cannot drink alcohol, right? We need our young people to stand up and to join this fight. And you would be surprised how many pro-lifers there are. On my own campus, we did a When Do Human Rights Begin table. And on a liberal New York State school, we did expect that the majority would be pro-choice. And do you know, with our display that had about 6 to 8 flyers that noted conception through natural birth, these 6 to 8 different points, when do you think human rights should begin? Now, think to yourself, what percentage of people that talk to us do you think voted pro-life? 60% of the people that we talked to that day told us that they believed that human rights should begin by the time that the mother of said child is aware that she's even pregnant. They are recognizing conception and implantation and first heartbeat as these very real signs of life and humanness. But we have to be vocal about it. A silent majority is no good if it becomes a silenced majority. We have to be willing to speak up. Next slide, please. This is so much bigger than you or me. It's about legacy. It's about generations that stem from that saving grace that allowed Stefan's mother, that empowered her to choose life and to bring him into the world, and the generations that will come from him. It's so much bigger than a line on a resume. It's so much bigger than just the things we see on paper. What we say sticks. What we say as pro-lifers, how we convey ourselves, forms other people's opinions of what the pro-life movement is, and we want to show it with that love and with that compassion. And opportunities for leadership roles abound. Students for Life of America has over 1,200 groups across all 50 states. We have student leaders standing up in almost every corner of America, and we keep on growing. And there are so many leadership roles. Become a student leader. Apply for our fellowships. Whether you're a Christian leader or whether you're an artist like me, I have a degree in vocal performance and also one in international relations. I know, it's a fun combo. But there's so much out there. There is a place and a role in the pro-life movement for each and every one of you. Next slide, please. So how do we do this? These are the 5 pillars that we use here at Students for Life to form ourselves as well-rounded activists. Next slide, please. First off, we want to understand that being well-rounded matters. That speaking up on social media is great, but are we willing to have that difficult and private conversation? Or are we willing to volunteer and help fundraise for our local pregnancy help organizations? We have to identify effective activities to engage in, and it's different wherever you are. And also, create a strategic plan for your campus. Know how things operate. Know your social climate, get into it, figure it out, and change it for the better. Next slide. We want to create the healthy, effective, and well-rounded student groups to abolish abortion. And here's how we should be participating. Next slide, please. So, here's our blueprint. This is how we be effective activists. Next slide. Effective education. A lot of you walked by our display today, which is our fall tour that we're bringing on campus. We bring a lot of displays like this on campus to open that conversation. So many people don't realize that by the time that they find out they're pregnant, that their preborn child is so much more than a clump of cells, especially those of you who stopped by and saw our fetal model at 7 weeks, already has little arms, little legs, it has a face. I can't tell you how many times I've been on campus, and I'll show people that, like, oh, this is what the fetus looks like at this stage. And they immediately go, no, it's not. It's just a clump of cells. To which opens up a whole discussion on not only science, but philosophy and rights, right? And it takes conversation after conversation to open up and to change minds, but it is so worth it. Next slide, please. We need to be aware. We need to dialogue, and this recruits people to our cause. We find the spaces where we'll get that attention, and we usher in the people who may need to see this, or the ones who weren't aware that pro-lifers even existed on campus and are now so excited because there are more people like us. Like, oh my gosh, out here in crazy liberal New England, there are more pro-lifers. I love it. Next slide, please. So here's a list of sample events. We have workshops. You're more than welcome to invite me, hello, Mariah McCarran, New England Regional Coordinator, to events or that you would like, or to have me come and train you guys. Host debates with people on the other side with the apologetics that we teach. Host a pro-life speaker, chalk. Visit our national summit, by the way, happening January 22nd of 2022. Seats are limited if you are interested. Next slide, please. Industry impact. We go out to the very industry. We provide witness outside of Planned Parenthood with our peaceful witness and with our connection to pregnancy resource centers and pregnancy health centers to let women know that they have better options, to redirect them in this way to better, to more, and effectively reduce their demand for abortions. Next slide. Next slide, please. We have a number of things that do this. Visit your local 40 Days for Life campaign. Counsel on the sidewalk, prayer vigil, flyer out in your community. Hey, do you know that these things exist near you? Students for Life of America has actually just launched our campaign for abortion-free cities, where we are going door to door in these cities where we're campaigning, knocking on doors and letting people know, hey, have you heard of this amazing free resource that's right in your community? That you have options, that you have alternatives. Next slide, please. Public policy. Our parent organization, Students for Life Action, is amazing at this. We mobilize, we make sure we're heard. Just a few weeks ago, the State Executive Council of New Hampshire voted to defund all facilities that commit abortions in that state. And I was there with the mobilization, with our life chain, with our sign showing people driving by, and sitting 10 feet directly in front of Governor Chris Sununu, that the youth are pro-life, that we're here and that we care. Next slide, please. The more pro-life legislation we have, the more lives saved. The Texas Heartbeat Act has saved close to 4,000 lives. And there is so much more to be had. This battle is only just beginning when Roe versus Wade is abolished, not if, when. This fight is going to go back to the states. We have to be ready, and we have to be vigilant in states like this, in the Massachusetts and the Rhode Islands and the Maines and the Californias of this world, that we're going to have to continue to fight on that state level. Next, please. So what can you do? Fetal pain tabletops. Visit our lobby days. We have calling campaigns. Students for Life has done, or Students for Life Action, I apologize, has done door knocking to help with the efforts back in January to save the Senate. There are so many ways you can get involved. Next slide, please. We respond rapidly. Just last week, I was helping our friends in New York counter a women's march. We show up, we make sure we're present. We countered 24 cities across this country. We are not letting the abortion industry, the pro-abortion movement, march through our cities unanswered. We are present, we are here, and we will speak up with love. Next slide, please. We are bold, we are visible, and we are strategic. and we're enthusiastic. Because in order to be heard, we have to not only be heard, but we have to be seen, which is why we show up. Next slide, please. So, a list of various things you can do. Counter-protest, the pro-choice clubs, write letters to the editor, flyer. Make sure that your voice, that your materials are out there in spaces they're allowed to be. Next slide, please. And last but not least, our supportive services. I'd like to thank First Choice Pregnancy Center of Waterville for having us here tonight. This is a great example of what supportive services are and what they do, right? We help those who are facing this difficult decision who don't know where to go. We reach out with our Standing With You campaign and those resources to empower women to choose life. Next slide, please. We find that need and we fill that need, like you saw in our video. Babies are saved, parents are served, generations are saved with this. And all we need to do is link those arms to be that support system, to be that community that so many simply need to find. Next slide, please. So, sample events, get together and create a network to babysit during finals week. Flyer for your Title IX rights, that people know the rights that they have on campus as pregnant and parenting students. Or baby item drives. My personal favorite is what's called an online baby shower, where you create a registry for this anonymous mom, like, oh, Mama A is expecting her baby boy in June. And with the goodwill of donors, we're able to get that baby registry filled, and these packages are sent to her doorstep to help her out and to fill that need. Right? We fill the need where we see it. Next slide, please. So, here's a sample of a school year. There are tons of ways that this could go. But these are just a few ideas. Next slide. So what's your next step? Call me. That is your next step. Schedule that 5-pillar consultation. Call me and see if I can come in for your youth group. I would love to come in for your youth group and talk to you guys about apologetics, about how to defend your stance, about how to speak to life and how to defend that, to speak with both science and philosophy. Visit studentsforlife.org for a ton of info that we have. And let's plan, right? As New England Regional Coordinator, I cover all 6 states of New England. My job is to be here to help you guys be the most amazing activists that you can be. Next slide, please. So next slide. Okay, guys, I got a challenge for you. You see a list of socials up here. I want you guys, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whoever can prove to me that they have followed all of these and they have texted all of these first, will get a free Pro-Life Generation t-shirt. Whoever can come to me first and prove that you are following all of these wins the t-shirt. Wait, do we have someone that's already? Whoop. All right, we have Instagram. Do we have Facebook? Oh no. Oh no. All right. Also, you see my email up here. If you ever need to get a hold of me. All right. So I'm saying, is this an issue that we don't have all the platforms? Okay. Let's do something different. Yeah. Okay. I have a new one, quiz for you guys, because I've been talking to you during this break about amazing fetal development. First hand I see in the air to tell me, wait, keep them down for a second. By the end of which trimester are all organs present and functioning in a fetus? Bingo, ma'am, in the pro-life gray t-shirt. I will talk to you in a second. All right, next slide, please. And that concludes it for us. So if you have any questions for me, I'd like to invite Kristen, who we see in the back here. If you have questions for her as well, we're happy to take them. Okay. So, Kristen, would you like to take this, or do I have the honor? Okay. Margaret Sanger is the founder of Planned Parenthood. Her legacy is an organization that has ended countless lives, that began in the American eugenics movement. That the birth of Planned Parenthood actually began as a league for birth control, as population control for selective populations. Yeah, who said it back there? I heard you. No, but that's the point. Margaret Sanger's empire is Planned Parenthood. It is this eugenics, it is this birth control that has sold the lie that we need abortion to succeed, that it is somehow compassionate to end the lives of our children so that the others may succeed. When we know, in fact, that if our success is bought with the blood of our children, it is utter failure, and we deserve so much better. But in short, Margaret Sanger is the woman to which Planned Parenthood and its legacy can be traced back. Yeah, Preacher Kristen. I got you covered, girl. Talk to me after this. Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me. We would love to create a homeschool network, or to get you involved with other pro-lifers in your area, or start up that network. It just takes a little bit of TLC, which is where you get in touch with me, and we go from there. But yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and I can help you do that. Mm-hmm. Make your own schedule. Be an entrepreneur. Oh, yeah.
They specifically, no one ever asked me that. They specifically position their location so women can walk to their facility or right by the bus stop or the metro station. So in like Washington, D.C., they kept getting accused because they were on 16th Street, and it was too like fancy of a neighborhood, so they built their like cool mega, and literally they had it right up in the Washington Post style section, style section, when they opened up about how cool and trendy their new Planned Parenthood was in an up and coming gentrified neighborhood, but it's like right on the subway line and bus stop. So they definitely know who their target audience is, and it's and what they'll say is, and they've actually, the Guttmacher Institute came out. We did these series of press conferences back in 2008, and we had black pastors, and we toured the country, and we did press conferences around Planned Parenthood, calling them racist. And then to prove that they weren't racist, Planned Parenthood's Guttmacher Institute, they used to be formally connected, now they're separate, came out and said, we're not racist, it's just that black women have a harder time at reading reading the birth control packs, and so they need abortions more. And so to say that they weren't racist, they proved that they were racist. It was like the most racist denial of being racist I've ever heard in my life. So they like just dig their hole and just keep on digging. But that was their reasoning. I was like, we're not racist. It's just black women don't know how to use birth control and don't read the prescription, and therefore need more abortions because they don't use their birth control correctly. So. Yes, New York City, Philadelphia. Well, I mean, you could call it feticide. I mean, it's just abortion. That's what abortion is. Gendercide would be if you target females, which that's what happens in China, right? So like China got rid of the one-child policy. Now they're saying they're going to permit. Then they said, well, 2. Now they're saying maybe 3, and they're trying to incentivize birth because mothers were being told they couldn't have more than one child, and so when they would do the sex ultrasound 20 weeks, they would abort the females because the females leave, and so males are more valuable in the society. Asia, that's why China literally just came out and said that they're relaxing. Now you can have up to 3 children because they're actually trying to reverse this terrible demographic trend that they have. And so like in China, for example, families are buying girls, making pledges with other families for their sons because there's not enough females. Yes, yeah, you kind of need both, despite what they tell you, there are 2 genders and you need both of them to make babies. Yeah.
So, we just heard a question. Why do people choose to abort rather than choosing adoption? Rather than choosing to place a child with an adoptive family? Now, I'd like to iterate that the reason for abortion, pretty much every time that you're going to hear it, is going to be fear. Fear that a woman won't be able to finish college and have her career and take care of a baby. Fear that she won't be able to give her new child the life that she thinks it deserves. And also tied to that is a sense of guilt. I mean, I've talked to a number of women facing these very difficult circumstances, and several have told me, if I were to place my child with an adoptive family, I would feel like a terrible parent. Which, if I may answer to that as well, as someone who has oh my goodness, who has adoption in my family, worst word slip of the night, guys. As someone who has adoption in my family, who has seen that light, I have 2 cousins adopted from South Korea and 1 cousin adopted from Colombia. These parents are not failing their children by placing them with an adoptive family. It's an incredibly difficult situation, but they're giving them the world. And we have to address that guilt in this way. to let them know that this is one of the strongest things, if they truly feel that this would be best, that they are opening the world up. I mean, one of my cousins who was adopted just got married to her partner of, 11 or 12 years. I was 12 years old when they first got together. And just the light, she's an ultrasound nurse. She graduated from a nice private school out in New York. There's so much more to life and so much potential in choosing adoption and placing it with that adoptive family. But the short answer is it's guilt that drives this wanting or the fearful direction toward abortion as opposed to placing a child with an adoptive family.
Like 10. Yeah, I mean, I've never counted them, but I've never really counted them, but they're all like, you hear the same ones. Like, there's really nothing ever new. Like, every once in a while, somebody will try to make a completely crazy thing, and we'll kind of go, oh, is this a new thing coming? But it ultimately always comes down to, what is it, right? So you'll hear bodily autonomy questions, arguments for bodily autonomy, and then you're going to hear biological arguments that the child isn't a child or the child has no value. That will go into a philosophical argument. So it's like the three main categories, right? But maybe you hear like 10 common things that they'll say. They'll say, what about rape? What about mothers? Like, yeah, so they're kind of all the same. Now, what's interesting and something I've been saying to some of our adult supporters when they've been asking what's new on campuses is something I saw last spring when I finally got back on some campuses. For the first time, the my two last schools I spoke at, and we had pro-choice students there. When I was engaging them in the Q&A, for the first time ever, the students admitted to me that they have no value themselves. And so that to me is actually, I don't really know how we're going to solve that one. Because how can you convince someone that a human fetus, that they've never met before, that they don't identify with, they can't see, is a human being, which means science, with rights and value, if they themselves don't actually think they actually have any value, and they're willing to stand up in front of a room full of strangers and tell a room full of strangers that they themselves have no value. And so I think that's a much broader question and problem. I mean, this is the post-Christian. Yes. Yeah, but this is the post-Christian mindset that now you have to face on campus. Yeah, that's why I have an argument. Like we've had atheist staffers. Sorry, my ear is like hurting from the airplane today. We've had atheist staffers before at Students for Life. I don't think we currently have anybody who's atheist. You have to be a special kind of atheist to work with all Christians all the time, who are always trying to convert you and save your soul. Like you gotta be really like convicted. But it's interesting because we have one of our former fellows, kind of like Mariah, one of our Wilberforce fellows, started a group called Secular Pro-Life, and she was one of our first class of fellows. And she's done my podcast. Subscribe to my podcast, by the way. She's done my podcast a couple of times, and the question I always ask her is like, I don't understand. Like, I'm so glad you're pro-life, and I'm so glad you go. Atheists have conventions, like, because they don't have church, but they still want networking, so they do like atheist meetups. It's because they don't have church. But I said, well, how do you argue with somebody that you have value? Like, where does your value, like, why do we care about human beings? Why do we say, human beings on death row have value? Why would you argue against the death penalty? Why would you argue against abortion? Like, where does your value come from if this was all just like some giant mistake? And it was interesting because she said, that's so funny that you asked that because only the Christians ever asked me that question. And I was like, but how do you answer this question, Kelsey? And she's like, well, we already know we have value. I was like, but where does your value come from, Kelsey? And she doesn't. They literally don't know. They don't know. That's the answer. It drives me insane because it's not there's no logic. Yes, yeah. It takes more faith to be an atheist. Yes. So yeah, it's crazy because she's like, only Christians ever ask me that question. We atheists know we have value, but now it's not. But now it's starting to change. I'm very interested. I need to do another podcast with her. Subscribe to my podcast because I would like to know if this now post-Christian mindset where students are openly saying, "You're right. I don't have any value." Like, how is that going to affect her outreach and having discussions with atheists? So, sorry, long answer to a big problem. Other questions?
Please let me. As someone with a uterus and an opinion, would like to vouch for every man that you do not need to have a uterus to have an opinion on this issue. You have my permission as someone with the uterus and the opinion. Now, thank you, Kristen. Arguments don't have gender. Logic is logic, regardless of the genetics of the people who are dictating the logic. Now, yeah, and good point, Kristen, too. Did you know that Roe versus Wade was decided by 7 old white men on the Supreme Court? Oh, sorry. We think there was one black man. My apologies. 7 old men on the Supreme Court. We need our pro-life men standing up to not just say that the life in the womb has value. That's step 1. But also to back it up. To say that we need to be building these communities. That we need to be supporting women. That we have failed our women. That society has failed if we think abortion is the answer. It takes 2 human beings to make a baby. And we need more people, more men willing to stand up, to vouch, not only that you yourself will be responsible, but that we need to hold men to this standard, to stand by women and to help be this network in this community. Yes, that too. We appreciate the muscular assistance. It's true. We had him help with the strike for our display. Yep.
We're engaging in like a $250,000 research study on men right now. And shockingly, men are way more complicated than the women. So we did an 18-month-old long study on mushy women. So women in the middle, I don't like abortion, how to find the best, most compelling arguments to change their minds. Women were actually pretty easy to figure it out. It's not easy to change your mind, but we know what the problem is. Men are like all over. We're only halfway done the study, and the researchers who've been doing this type of work for like 40 years are like, we've never engaged in anything more difficult because men are all over the place. What we think is going to come down as the winning messaging is attacking the my body, my choice argument, because men give all the different reasons, but empowering men to do exactly what Mariah said of, it's your child just as much as hers. And what about the child's body? And attacking that because men have been told for decades to sit down and shut up. But yeah, we need more men in the pro-life movement desperately. It's a big problem, actually. Yeah, but that didn't work in the polling, just FYI. We thought it would. I did a whole video on that, sir, and they didn't care. So that means you need mothers to tell men what their roles. Yeah. You need the moms not to tell the men to sit down and shut up. Do you want me to take it or do you want to take it? I'll jump in if I feel like this.
So, sorry, side comment from Kristen made me laugh. In the case of rape, first I want to iterate that rape is one of the most horrific things that can happen to a human being. That first and foremost, we need to spend 90% of our time talking to this person to let them know that we care. That first and foremost, we need to make sure that the victim of this assault is safe, that their rapist is being held accountable to the full extent of the law, and in some states the law needs to be changed, that they're punished more fully. That being said, does one violence solve another violence? This woman is already going through an incredible amount of trauma from what just happened to her. Abortion adds the additional trauma of the end of the life of a child that is hers. Ryan Baumberger is a very famous pro-life activist who was conceived in rape himself, and he talks about this. It's incredibly difficult to go through something like that, to see the struggles of one's parent, or possibly to know about it if one was placed with an adoptive family. But that being said, this child has so much more value. They are not the residue of their mother's rapist. They are their mother's very resilience. They are her strength personified. And in someone facing this fear, we need to make sure that she's being connected to the counseling resources, that she has a community, that she's not feeling alone, that she has people backing her up that empower her to do this. Because there is so much joy to be had in human life. There is so much more to be known, and so much strength to be seen in the mother that has this child, that lives on a legacy. Who knows if it would become the next Ryan Baumberger speaking for life? Who knows if it would be the first female president or the person to cure cancer? But first and foremost, we have to make sure that mom feels supported and that she knows we have her back. Anything else to add, Kristen? Yeah, we have about 70, 75 employees right now. Any other questions? Thank you so much, Waterville, for having us. It has been lovely.
Thank you, ladies. Actually, Kristen, if you guys could stay up here. I'll give these, I'm not going to ask any questions, but I'll hand these out later. I know all who ask questions. But I actually wanted to invite Wendy up here. We'd like to just pray over you guys. You know, they have actually a long journey tonight. They are driving back to Portland and then on a plane tomorrow. So we are just honored that you guys came all the way up here to Maine to speak with us. And I hope that you guys feel blessed. And we hope that you are walking away tonight with some knowledge to put into that toolbox of educating and equipping you to defend life. And like Kristen said, I hope that, you know, at least within the next week, that one of you teens, even my little homeschooler Grace, you know, starts a Students for Life group. So, right? And let that next one be in Waterville or the surrounding area. I know that some of you guys don't live right in Waterville. So just thank you, ladies, for all that you do for the pro-life movement. And we're just really blessed to have you guys here. So I'm going to pass it along to Wendy.
I just got done telling Chris I wasn't going to talk tonight. So can you two come over here? Yeah. We are just so incredibly thankful and really blessed to have these two here tonight. And I have been an admirer and a rooter for them from a distance for a long time. And it's just really a privilege and an honor to have them here. So just God bless you and thank you. But let's just pray for them. Heavenly Father, you are such a good, good God. And I just love Kristen's story about not really having the tools, but having you, and having you ask her to do something that seemed too big, God, but you equip those that you call. So God, I pray your continued hand on Kristen and on Mariah and the whole of Students for Life. I pray, Father, that you would protect them. I pray you would continue to give them wisdom, continue to give them discernment, insight, understanding. God, thank you for your Holy Spirit that goes before them. Lord, I'm looking forward to a time when Roe versus Wade is indeed overturned, and I'm looking forward to a time when abortion is indeed unthinkable. Thank you for each person here tonight, Lord. I know that you are doing a thing in people's hearts, and I pray, God, that you would cause people to rise up. And you tell us, like you told Joshua over and over and over, to be strong and courageous, not be afraid or dismayed, because you, the Lord our God, are with us. Thank you for going with the Students for Life team tonight, and please just bless them, God, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, guys.